Hello and welcome to another episode of Mo Money Mo Problems, your budget deck tech show with me, your host, Brian. Anyways, this is the mono black deck in our color pie cycle of budget modern decks, and it is 8 rack, the blackest deck of all. This is the kind of deck that if you're looking to just play with your friends, I may not recommend building because they will no longer want to play with you. But it's still a pretty cool deck. It has some cool interactions. If you don't know what 8 rack is, it's based off of the card the rack, and there are 8 copies, 4 of these, and then 4 of another card that's basically the same. So let's start off. This deck is about discarding, making your opponents discard, and you don't really care if you lose card advantage as long as they are discarding and have 0 cards in their hand. You are happy. You're looking for a good time. That didn't make any sense. Anyways, let's start off with the sorceries. This is a 1-drop discard spell. Target player discards a card called Cry of Contrition, but it's got Haunt. So what Haunt says is that when you play this spell, you target a creature, and then when that creature dies, the effect happens again. Yeah, there's only 3 of these because it's not the best, but it's kind of cool. I like Haunt. Haunt's a cool mechanic. But they get to choose the card that they discard. So it's not necessarily the best, but it is discard. Duress. This is where you actually get to look at their hand and choose a card. It is non-creature, non-land, but you get to interrupt their combo. If they are a combo deck, or even if they're a fair deck, you take out their best piece. It does not hit creatures though, which is unfortunate. And this is the card that I would take out for Thoughtseize if you're looking to invest in this deck. Thoughtseize is the card that you would use to replace this card. Raven's Crime, another 1-drop discard card, but it's got Retrace. Raven's Crime is the main discard engine in this deck, because you can keep playing it over and over and over again. Retrace says that you can cast it from the graveyard by discarding a land card from your hand in addition to paying the cost. So when inevitably you will have no cards in your hand and you're playing off of top deck, every time you draw into a land, you have something to do with it other than just playing with it, or putting it out on the battlefield and then doing nothing. You can discard it because you don't need that many lands and make them discard their card. Smallpox. Disgusting card. Nasty card. Even the art is gross. But what it says, it's the fairest card in all of Magic because everybody loses. That's debatable. So it says each player loses 1 life, discards 1 card, sacrifices 1 creature, and then sacrifices 1 land. Awful. Nobody likes it. It's awful. It is a plague, hence the name Smallpox. But this gives you an advantage because you don't care about not having cards in hand, or not having a creature, or not having a land. This affects you a lot less than your opponents, and that's why it gives you advantage. Finally on our sorcery list is Wrench Mind. This art is one of my favorites. Crazy looking, bone crushing. Wow. Yeah, anyways, so this is 2 black. They discard 2 cards unless they discard an artifact card, which is very rare that they would have an artifact. Unless you're playing against Affinity, or some certain deck lists do run a majority of artifacts, but for the most part, this is 2 black. They discard 2 cards. Now, those are most of our discard. Those are most of the ways we have to make them discard. Now let's talk about the rack. This is what happens when they don't have any cards in their hand. This is how you win. So it says at the beginning of target opponent's upkeep, the rack deals damage to that player equal to well, okay, it's phrased deals 1 damage for each card in their hand less than 3. So they have 3 cards, 0 damage. 2 cards, 1 damage. 1 card, 2 damage. 0 cards, 3 damage. Hopefully you'll be able to get them down to 0 cards pretty quick. So this becomes 3 damage per turn. Very, very strong. And it does trigger on upkeep, so that's before they draw. Let's we'll get back to creatures here in a second. Quest for the Nihil Stone. Now this is one of the cards that I found when I was trying to build this deck, on a budget. Oh, I did forget to do that real quick. This deck is less than $50 calculated through TCG at the time of recording. And that's what's important for this budget deck. Keep it under $50. Anyways, back to Quest for Nihil Stone. This is a card that I found when I was building this deck that I'm kind of curious to why decks, like top, 8-rack decks that are top 8ing, if there are any. I'm not really sure, but why they're not running this card. This card's sweet, super sweet. So it's a quest card. Which says that whenever something happens, you put a quest counter on it, and then when you get this amount of quest counters, something else happens. But with this is you put a quest counter on every time they discard a card, and then if they have no cards in hand at the beginning of the upkeep, and it has 2 quest counters on it at least, which it will, they lose 5 life. That's incredible. It's like even better than the rack. It's a little harder to get to, but you have so much discard that I feel like it's worth running. And, well, obviously, I feel like it's worth running, so that's why it's in here. Shrieking Affliction. This is our other 4 copies of the rack. This is the most similar to, that's why it's called the 8-rack. I guess this could be 9 and 10. But this says at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, he or she loses 3 life. So, like the rack, it does 3 every turn. The card in hand number is a little bit different, and unlike the rack, so the rack can deal 1, 2, or 3 damage. This just straight up does 3. So debatably better, maybe. I don't know. Hard to judge. I'm not sure on the difficulty to get players down to 1 card in hand versus 2 or 3. I'm not sure. I haven't played this deck against anybody else, but I just built it, and this is this is meant to be a jumping off point for if you want to, if you're getting into Modern. This is something that you can build for under $50 that will allow you to start going to tournaments and stuff, and still play competitively. You may not win first place, or you may, but it will still allow you to play competitively and not just get steamrolled by other decks. Waste Not. This is one of my favorite cards in Magic. I love the art, the diversity, the flavor, and it's a playable card. I don't know. It's I really like this card aesthetically. So it cares about what they discard. If it's a creature, you get a 2/2 zombie. If it's a land, you get 2 mana, 2 black mana. And if it's a non-creature, non-land, you draw a card. This gives you card advantage for when they discard cards. I mean, like, imagine. Oh man, this seems insanely strong, but it also can be super dead, because if you have no cards in hand and you spent your only spell to make them discard a card and they discard a land, nothing happens. Other than you get some mana that you can't use. Let's go back over to the creatures. Guldraz Spectre. A 2/2 flying for 4. Not great, but if they have no cards in hand, then it's a 5/5 flying for 4. Very good. And when it deals combat damage to them, they discard a card. So another way to make them discard cards. To, well, he helps himself. Hypnotic Spectre. This is another one that says when it deals combat damage to an opponent, they discard a card at random. That at random is key here, because they don't get to choose whether or not to break up their own combo, or if they have a combo in their hand. It is random, and it's also 2/2 flying for 3, which is it's fair. It's good. Yeah, it's very good. There's only one Liliana's Reaver in here. He doesn't have flying. He does have Death Touch. He doesn't pass the Lightning Bolt test, but in addition to making them discard when he deals damage, he also gets you a 2/2 zombie. He's one of the first cards that I might take out of the deck. I like him because there's a lot of flavor there, and he's a cool card. I like cool cards. Speaking of flavor and cool cards, and there just because I can, Nezumi Shortfang or Stab Whisker the Odious. Man, Kamigawa had some of the best names, I think. Some of the most obscure, crazy names, as well as some of the most obscure and crazy abilities. This guy is a discard effect on a stick. He's a 1/1 for 2 and then does his ability for 2. But if they have no cards in hand when he does his ability, you flip him, and then he becomes another rack. So he is rack number 11. And his text, if you don't want to flip your head open, if you don't want to flip your head over to read it, is exactly what the rack is, but it's on a 3/3 creature. So that's pretty cool. He's number 11. I like that card. And then finally, I guess we have lands, but for our instances, we have Victim of Night. And it's just 2 black, destroy target creature, because nobody's really playing vampires, werewolves, or zombies. There are some few examples, but I mean, unless you're playing within your friend group and someone's built like a zombie deck or a werewolf deck or a vampire deck, this is just a 2 black, destroy target creature. Yeah, it's great. And kill spells are really important in this deck because you don't really have any other sort of removal, and if they do get a creature out early before you've completely wiped their hand, then you're in trouble, because that could be the way they win the game. You only have 6 creatures. You're not going to be blocking a whole lot. So Victim of Night and Smallpox are your way to get rid of their creatures if they do get one out early, which it's modern, so they probably will. Going over to our lands here, we have 4 Dakmor Salvages. This is in here solely to feed Raven's Crime. So since Raven's Crime has Retrace, you can just discard your Dakmor Salvage and then draw it up again next turn because it has Dredge. And what Dredge says is that if it's in your graveyard, you can put it in your... Anytime you would draw a card, you can put it in your hand and then put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Yeah. So you do lose a bunch of cards, but if you're in a favorable place with Shrieking Affliction or the Rack out or multiples, you can lock them down and just Raven's Crime each turn, keep them off their cards, and you'll eventually win that way. There's 2 Mortuary Mires in here, and this is solely for if you've milled away a creature that you want or need. If they have something out that you need to deal with and you need to get a creature back into your hand, that's what Mortuary Mire is in here for. Now, there is only 6 creatures, and it's hard to feel justified running even 2 of these. So if you don't like them, take them out. Or they're here to give you an idea of what you can do. So if you decide that you want to run more creatures, then you could keep these guys in or add 2 more of them to make 4. And then finally 14 Swamps. So yeah, this is the 8 rack deck. A couple cards that you might keep an eye out for if you really like this deck and want to build it. It would be first and foremost Thoughtseize. That is probably one of the strongest discard cards in Modern. In most formats, actually. Liliana of the Veil, but that one's quite expensive, actually. But she is a planeswalker that makes them discard cards. It's exactly what you need her to do. And then Ensnaring Bridge. Ensnaring Bridge is a very strong card. It says that creatures with power greater than the number of cards you have in your hand cannot attack you. And most of the time you're going to have 0 cards in your hand. So, unless they have Ornithopters out, and then pump the Ornithopters after they've declared attackers, they can't attack you. And so that's what makes this deck strong, because they have no way to win, and you're just dealing a bunch of damage to them every single turn. Anyways, if you like this deck, let me know in the comments below. If you have a version of this deck that you've built, or seen some good reactions from your local game store for in a local tournament or anything like that, definitely post a list in the comments below. I'd love to see it. If you have any matchups that you want to see for the Deck Tech Dudes matchup series, also post those as well. Check them out on the channel. And don't forget to like and subscribe for further content. And we'll see you next time. We'll be doing, what's next in the color pie? Let's see here. Black and red. Red is next. We'll be doing red next. Ooh, I'm excited for that one. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.